Okay, so we are now recording. So everyone change your voice to your theatrical voice. Just kidding. Okay, wonderful. So welcome everyone to Elevate Lane County's very first working Wednesday of this school year. My name is Lizzie Gray and I am a project coordinator for Connected Lane County. This is the first webinar in a series of about 8 this fall. Each Wednesday, we will take a deep dive into one or two of the New World of Work's top 10 professional skills. These skills are recognized by industry, by K-12 education and post-secondary education as the most important skills that we need to develop in order to be career ready. So today, we will be exploring the professional skill of adaptability. To help me, we have invited two professionals, Joshua Monhay and Lila Holman, to join us. Thank you both for being here today. Would you like to introduce yourselves and tell everyone what you do?
Sounds good. I'll go ahead and start. So my name is Joshua Monhay, and I am a search engine optimization expert. I started my own business, Waymaker SEO. We make a way for people to have clients find their website. Did that work about 10 years ago, and I'm back doing it for the last few months. Recently had a job transition, so adaptability is kind of on my list there. Before that, I worked 3 years as the Director of Economic Development for the local Eugene Chamber. I have 20 years of professional work experience and have had many different types of jobs. And so I'm very excited that adaptability is something I get to help out here with. So
awesome. Thank you, Joshua.
No problem.
Lila.
My name is Lila Holman. I am Human Resources Manager for Johnson Crushers International. We are a heavy equipment manufacturer based in Eugene, Oregon. Adaptability is definitely something that I feel like has gotten me to where I am in my life, and certainly made things easier for me in a working environment. So when people ask me, what does a human resources manager do? I kind of feel like I'm everybody's mom. We're the ones who, we help create rules. We help people understand what the rules are to keep them, the employee and the employer, safe. And then we also, we apply consequences, and we have to be consistent throughout all of those processes. So that's what I do.
Great. Well, thank you both. Everyone, I will get us started with a few questions, but students and participants, please write any questions that come up for you in the chat box. I will be monitoring that, and I will ask our panelists as you type in your questions. So please don't hesitate to ask whatever comes to mind. Okay, so adaptability. I personally don't think that this skill could be any more appropriate after the year that we have had. Truly, adaptability has been a theme that I think has run through the entire year in every walk of life, no matter who you are, what you do, where you work, how old you are. We have all had to adapt pretty significantly this year. So I'm really glad that we're about to dissect what adaptability looks like in the professional world. So Lila, you described a little bit about what you do. Joshua, I feel like you kind of did too. Does anybody want to add anything to what you do in your current position?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So owning your own business, it's interesting because you have to wear multiple hats. And so sometimes I'm busy trying to chase down a potential client and trying to talk to them about my services. Sometimes I'm having to follow up with clients that need something right away, something caught on fire and they need help with it. Sometimes I have to do the accounting and the billing and the receiving. So I'm usually wearing different hats as a business owner. And then with the search engine optimization work that I do, I work with different clients and they have different industries and different backgrounds. And so I'm constantly having to learn their industry, but also trying to get a process going. And so it's this constant give and take of applying what I know, learning something, and kind of addressing their needs and helping them kind of learn what I need them to know. So it's different every day. I have an idea of what my day looks like, and then I get to it. And fortunately, I have a lot of process and procedures. I put things in files, I get things organized, and so that helps structure me. But it does change, and so I need to be able to be flexible and adaptable.
Well, you just went ahead and answered question number 1, which was, what does adaptability look like in your professional field? So
Oh,
those
sorry.
were, no, that's
Okay.
great.
Okay,
Way to
cool.
go. You're a mind reader.
Yeah.
Lila, do you want to elaborate at all about what adaptability looks like as an HR manager?
So there's kind of two sides. So in my actual office, there's the software updates and upgrades and changes. So things like that, they move your whole world. You used to click this button to get X done, and that actually isn't going to work anymore. We're going to this software package that I've never heard of, and nobody consulted me or asked, or it's just, this is what we're doing now. And then also process changes. So we have a parent company, and if we're 17 companies report to this parent company, and if somebody develops a process that they'd like to have everybody execute, then same thing. Now we're doing it this way. Mm-hmm. And nobody cares if you've done it for 15 years in another way and whether or not that worked. And then also lately, our corporate entity has taken a much bigger role in each of the sites. And so we've had reporting structure changes. Mm-hmm. So the person who hired me isn't who I report to anymore. And I report to somebody who I've only met once. And stuff like that, it's like that's corporate world, and things change. And so there's that, the changes that happen to my job directly, excuse me, but because I take care of everyone, there's the changes that happen out on the production floor too. So right. That production manager, he has somebody that, we weren't going to fill that position. It was going to be a temp position, but now we really like that person. And so how do we make that change? And now how do we structure that position to be occupied fully by this person? And what does their training and development pack now look like? We hadn't planned for any of that. We'd planned for it to be temporary. So there's also helping other people through changes. And so anyways, there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of opportunity to help people through those cycles.
Yeah, yeah. And Lila, you mentioned this before we were fully on camera and recording, but is being an adaptable person something that comes naturally for you, or is that a skill that you've learned?
For me, it's something that comes naturally. I know that that's not the case for everyone, but mm-hmm. I like change. When we knew we were going to be implementing a new HRIS system, I threw our hand up and said, we want to help test it. We wow. want to be early adopters, because if you're on the edge, mm-hmm. then you get to help work out the kinks, and you get to be involved in those conversations, and what you want to have happen is more likely to happen than when you just
under control.
Yeah. So I like change. And that's why I like this kind of job.
Yeah.
Every day. That's not the same for everybody. Some mm-hmm. people like wash, rinse, repeat. They like to know what they're coming into daily. They like a schedule and things like that.
So say you have a member like that on your team, and you're volunteering your team for some big changes. How do you work with those people who adaptability doesn't necessarily come naturally to them?
It's like we've had this conversation, Lizzie. I do have a person like that on my team, and it's really been fun to watch her to get us working together. Mm-hmm. And because I drove her crazy, I know I did. And it's been a little bit of a challenge for me, but I take it personal, and it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. So when I put our hand up for this HRIS implementation, I went to her and I said, hey, listen, I think this is a great opportunity for us to, really to have our voices be heard. Mm-hmm. And then it won't be as big of a change for us once it's rolled out, because we will have seen it coming. We will have been involved in the changes. And so, it's kind of, you're jumping in the stream to get carried along. So then she was down with it, but it definitely would not have been so good if I'd have said, oh, first meeting's in the morning and we're going to be talking about this, so it's a little bit of preparation and adapting for me too, to know how to how to communicate with that personality. So, so adapting there to embrace the talent and their limitations, and also their what they have to offer, and keep to appreciate what they have to offer, and then just learning how to work with that is been a good challenge.
Good. What about you, Joshua? Does it come naturally for you, or have you learned?
You know what? I don't like change. I want to go to places that I know that I've been to and that I like. And so the challenge with that is I don't like change, but I do like new things and I like learning. So when it comes to change, I always have to focus on the elements of what I like. And so if say that my favorite restaurant closes down, I'm livid. I just can't stand it. That's just like the worst thing in the whole entire world. So what do I have to do? Well, I like to try new things. And so I'm reluctant to change, but I know that I need to. And so I actually try to control the change. So, you know, if I have a favorite restaurant, I have 3 favorite restaurants. If one of them goes away, okay, good. I guess like 2 that I know, and then I've got a backup. So
Nice.
even with my job, you know, it's constantly new people coming in and new work, and there's a lot of change, but I have processes and I have ways to kind of structure that. So it helps me stay centered. And I've had to learn that about myself, you know, to be honest with you, is I get a new job and it's like, okay, now I got to learn how to do this. I focus on the elements that I really enjoy, and I really try to use those to leverage into what I need to know to get the job done. And so it helps to offset that. And that's a behavior I definitely had to learn.
Okay. Nice.
So, and taking on new tasks, I think, you know, I like the challenge of the work and I like the new things. So I focus on that.
Sweet. Well, yet again, taking on new tasks, you've answered question 3.
Well, they dovetail so well.
I know it. No, it just flows together nicely. No, I agree. So if you were sitting next to a colleague right now, would that colleague say that you are a flexible person who's open to taking on new tasks?
I think so. And I think it's because I've had to learn to do that, you know? In fact, one of the compliments I got from previous job, that I was a very resourceful person.
Yeah.
So for me, when something doesn't work out, I see it as a challenge or an opportunity to overcome. And so again, focusing on the things that I can control and the things that, you know, giving a perspective that makes it actually enjoyable.
I like to call that scrappy. Not just resourceful, but scrappy.
Oh, I got stories about scrappiness, but that's for another.
Sure. What about you, Lila?
So definitely, if somebody came in here and you asked them, hey, is Lila a flexible person, you know, that'll take on different things, for sure. And I think that genuinely, most people don't like to say no, just in general. So if they're asked, I think a lot of people would say, sure, I can do that for you. Or, well, I've never done that before, but I'll try. Even if they're not a real adaptable person, they just don't want to say no.
Right.
But then there's a different level of person who seeks change, you know, and they want to change a process because they don't like this process. And they're not happy with doing something because that's the way it's always been done.
Right.
And that's me. I hate that phrase. We don't use that phrase. We, you know, if we need to change something, we're going to change it.
Right.
And yeah. So I think that in general, if you ask someone, people don't like to say no, even if it makes them a little uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's actually kind of fun sometimes, especially people that don't like change. I like asking them to do something because I know they're not going to say no.
Right.
And then it's actually fun, and they're like, hey, I didn't realize I could do that. And
right, and they grow.
You know, so it's kind of a growth tool.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I bet none of us have ever had job descriptions that didn't evolve and morph and change throughout our career. Right. That's just not how the world works, unfortunately.
Right.
So according to the NWOW, New World of Work standards, adaptable people have healthy coping mechanisms for stress. Healthy being the key word. What do you two do to cope with stress?
You first, Joshua.
Oh, me first? All right. Well, one, I think, is understanding when I am under stress. Like, when I'm feeling tense and there's just all this stuff and I'm feeling overwhelmed, I go, wait a second, I think I'm stressed. And then I'm like, okay, great. Now that I understand the stress, I got to make sure to allocate some time to reset myself or reset my brain. And so for me, I like to garden. I like to cook. I am a little bit of a nerd, so I do tabletop miniature battles, and so I paint little guys, and
No way. Like with one of those giant magnifying glasses?
No. It's like a board. It's called Warhammer 40K. It's this like you build armies and little guys,
I
and
didn't know this about you.
yeah, I know. See, that's so nerdy. Like even you are embarrassed for me, so that's awesome. I'm just kidding. So I enjoy that. And so I have hobbies and I have ways to basically that like take me out of that situation and put me in a different situation of something that uses the skills and things that I like, but in a way that it's like not the end of the world if something doesn't get done. And so I try to be mindful when I'm stressful, and then I try to make sure that I create time to engage in activities that reduce that or completely ignore whatever's causing the stress.
Smart. That sounds very healthy. Good job.
Thanks.
What about you, Layla?
I was afraid that ignoring it wouldn't be healthy, but now I'm hearing that might be okay. Because truly, it bothers my husband because he talks about his work all the time, and I just literally never do. I'm at work 120,000%, and at home I'm there 120,000%. So I mean, when I leave here, I'm mom. I'm somebody that nobody. I mean, they're gonna. I mean, I'm just mom.
Right.
I'm not important in any other way. Besides helping with homework and laundry and keep. And that sort of thing. So to me, that separation is really critical, and I feel like that helps me cope because I just laser focus.
Yeah.
So I do want to clarify though, ignoring stress though, it only works if it's things that you can ignore. Like if your house is on fire, you can't be like, that's stressing me out, I'm gonna go do something else. Or I gotta feed the kids, they're stressing me out. That's it, I'm out of here. No, I mean,
right. Well, I think, and just taking care of things you can control, do them.
That's huge.
Right.
And because then the crap that you can't control, it's not so overwhelming. It's like you have space for that now because your pile isn't too tall.
Right.
And I think as adults, like, working with our spouses or other people in our relationships, like we tell them, hey, we're doing this because we're stressed, whatever. I think for students, I think maybe talking to their parents or the guardians or whoever it is that's responsible for them and letting them know, hey, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. I'm going to play video games, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that for a set period of time just because I need to get my brain around something else. I think that would be really helpful for them. I mean, I have teenagers and stuff.
Yeah.
We've taught our kids, like, my son gets really overwhelmed. He's like, Dad, I just need a break. Like, I'm like, yeah, dude, go ahead. But the timer's on, so.
Right. Because you do have to cope. I mean, you've got to come back to whatever it is, and it's not going to go away. So we do have to deal with it. Just, if you take an hour to get your mind right again so you can focus, nobody's going to die in that hour or whatever.
Right. So I posed this question to the group, to all of our listeners. I wrote into the chat box, what do you all do to cope with stress? So I'm going to answer the question. And while I'm answering, I'm going to buy you some time so you can answer as well. And I would say I'm a very organized person, and I tend to feel most stressed when I feel out of control and just like too many things are happening in life. And for example, we found out last month that we have to move. And so just the like overwhelming stress, I tend to just make copious amounts of lists. It really helps me organize my mind, and I can check off the easy to-dos, and I can just get a way better timeline of truly in this moment, do I need to be stressed? And the answer is no, more often than not. And then you just slowly tick off the easier things, and that tends to calm me down quite a bit. I also like to go for drives. I'm lucky enough to have a car and a license. And so when I do just get completely stressed, I will go for a drive, and that tends to help.
Wait, what do you mean you're lucky enough? I thought you were an adult.
I mean, I'm an adult, but not everybody has a license in a car.
I mean, that's appreciating the small stuff. I mean, things people take for granted, you know.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. So our participants are being pretty quiet, so I'm going to move on to the next question. But please know, if you want to answer that, we'll come back to tell the group how you cope with stress. Okay, so here's a scenario. Your boss, and Joshua, you have to invent a boss because currently you are your own boss. Your boss gives you some harsh but very constructive feedback to a project that you worked on. How do you handle that?
Well, first of all, there's a reason they're your boss. In most cases, it's because, I mean, everybody reports to somebody. And I mean, Joshua, yeah, you're your own boss, but you have customers. So if you don't keep them happy, you know, there's consequences. So this actually happened to me. I was new in this position, and we had a big project that had some pretty hefty implications around regulation stuff. And I got some numbers wrong on a spreadsheet that I was submitting for review. And my boss said to me, he said, you know, he gave me some grace because I was new, never done this before. And he was a very hands-off boss. He was a very like, do this, I'm going to ask you to do this thing. You get to figure out how to do it. And I knew that if I made a little mistake, that he would be kind of flexible because he had literally given me no guidance. And he was harsh. He's like, you know, he goes, sometimes, you know, a person might lose their job over something like this. And he said, we're not there. He goes, but there's a detail here. If you have questions, you know, you need to ask and stuff like that. So he was the kind of boss who just like let you sink or swim. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, you just take it, you have to take it to heart and just really understand that they've put you in this position. So they have some level of faith in you already. Mm-hmm. And just understand that it's coming from a good place, the criticism. Hopefully it is. I mean, in this case, it was coming from a good place. He wanted me to succeed. So I guess, you know, understand that, like where it's coming from, and just know that, you know, there's a reason they're your boss. So if you heed their criticism, that you will get better in your job too. So, and you just have to be open to that.
That's great.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think Lila made a good point. Each of my clients, they're like new bosses every time. So I have to figure out how to communicate with them and then what their expectations are. I had one person to give me some hard feedback. Mm-hmm. And I think there was a misunderstanding. And so once I clarified the misunderstanding, we were able to work past it. I generally let things go. Again, life's too short to be investing too much time in anger and frustration. And so with the clients, I'm very careful with it. And I think part of the reason why is I'm a pretty hard critic of myself. And so in my head, I have a running dialogue, you know, and so I'm very committed to like continuous improvement. So I always want things to be better. So, you know, there's an old adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, even if it's working, it could be working better and more efficient. Mm-hmm. And so I'm constantly in my head about those things, and I try to catch things that, you know, potentially could be problems. But, you know, I think to Lila's point too, you know, understand where people are coming from, and maybe it's causing them frustration or it's causing them more work and they're upset, and there's other pressures that are pressuring them to come talk to you. And so kind of understanding that and working through it and reacting calmly, I think, is always helpful.
Yeah, and taking all feedback in stride. You got to keep moving forward. Can't let it totally debilitate
Joshua,
you.
I think that you're as a business owner, that's a unique perspective when it comes to criticism and expectations, because each of your customers is kind of a boss, and so they would each have a different expectation of you possibly. So whereas I have to please one boss, you know, and once you kind of get to know them, you kind of, you know, you can figure it out. and you get to know their personality and kind of what they're expecting.
Mhm.
You have a different set of rules for every person that you have as a customer.
I know, and I think part of what helps is just having expectations for myself and expectations for those relationships. And so, some people, they want to hear from you as soon as they send an email. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's not how I work, and I try to get that up front and set some of those expectations. So I can imagine, I'm trying to think of the students here, when you're working with your teachers, some teachers want information right away, some teachers want it later. Figuring out how to communicate and create a system for yourself to receive is always helpful, I think.
That's good advice. So we have been flooded with answers. I'm going to read some of them. Rose says, to ease stress, I tend to play video games, draw, write, or take a walk. Those all sound like great options. Mary Beth likes to play the uke, which I didn't even know. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Or go for a strenuous hike, which good on you. I'll go for a flat hike, but a strenuous hike's impressive. Another person says, I cope with stress by going on a walk while listening to a podcast. That is, that's very wise. And then someone else just finds stuff to distract them.
I like the reality TV one. That's awesome.
I didn't see reality TV. I turned my brain off completely.
Yeah.
Very nice. That's one to set a timer for. You can get lost in reality TV.
Go to someone else's reality for a little bit.
Yes, good
Right.
point.
Like,
Good
I wish
point.
I had those problems. I'm just kidding.
Right. So we actually have a really awesome question here. If asked to try a new task at work, how do you deal with feeling insecure about trying something new or having imposter syndrome?
What is imposter syndrome?
So I might butcher this, but my understanding of, Joshua wants to do it.
Yeah, so imposter syndrome is where you're asked to do something that you probably already know how to do, but you feel like you're not at the expert level. And so when you're asked to do it, you'll do it, but you feel like you're not really representing that well, or that you basically feel like you're an imposter, like you're doing something that isn't really.
That you're not qualified to do, or that you shouldn't be doing.
So the new tasks are insecure. Fortunately, I have a few years under my belt, so I have experiences. And when I approach something new that I haven't done before, I try to look for what they call transferable skills. So maybe I haven't done search engine optimization for an investment bank before. It's a new thing for me. But, I've worked at a bank in the past. I actually got vetted by Goldman Sachs, and so I kind of know some stuff about financial stuff. And then I have other experiences that I can draw from, friends' conversations and other experiences. So when I take that on, I know, I might not be the expert in this, but I know how this piece works and this piece works, and kind of this is where we tie those two together. And again, I try to focus on the elements that I can control and the elements of what I enjoy, and kind of bring those together and say, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And so when I talk to people, sometimes I say, I don't really know, I haven't really done this before, but I've done this and this, and I've done this and this. Is that going to work for you? Mm-hmm. And sometimes people are like, you know what, I really appreciate that. Yeah, let's give it a shot. So, I think I don't know, there's some study out there that said that people that fear imposter syndrome, it's something like 90% of them are actually very qualified to do it. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're probably in the right place to be doing whatever it is that you're doing.
Well, and I feel like that goes back to what you said, and I think your last answer, but you have some level of credibility because you're in the position that you're in for a reason. You've been hired, you're in this position, you're given this new task for a reason. They didn't just pull it out of left field and say, hey, try to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And that if you're feeling insecure, that's on you. Like, you got to get over that, because you're being asked
tough
to
love.
Do. And
I said tough love.
Love.
No, but truly, so you've been asked to do this thing. Somebody clearly thinks you can, or else they're trying to stretch you, which that happens too. Or maybe they think you can't. And I would take that as a, let's do it. But I mean, if your own personal insecurity, that really doesn't, in my opinion, that doesn't have any place in what they're paying me to do. Like they're not paying me to deal with my personal insecurity. They're paying me to get a job done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if this is the job that I am being asked to do, then that's not, I mean, I don't have to be here, I guess, but
I think on the student front though too, if I can, you know, because it's a student that's asking the question, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think part of it is you're in a safe place to try new things. I mean, your teachers are asking you to do stuff.
yes. And they may be asking the student to do something as a stretch.
Totally.
You know,
as a growth moment, for sure.
That belief in them already, and it isn't a safe place. Yeah.
And I have to say that, you know, if you put the work in and you really try and practice, you know, if the results aren't perfect, that's okay. At least show that. Here's the kicker, and this isn't for my kids. It's like, listen, I know that you haven't done this before, and I'm asking you to do something, but I want to see the effort. So even if it doesn't come out perfectly, just show me that you did the effort.
Yes.
Because you know what? You're, no offense, but you're learning to be a human being, and you don't have every skill and everything. You don't know everything. And so practice it, develop it, be okay to fail. I think that's that in school, very much be okay to fail, but make sure that if you do fail, you can show, here's this thick book of work that I did to try to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. The only way to know you can't do something is to never have tried.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. I mean, you might be awesome at something you had no idea you could even do.
Yeah.
But, and that's what, we're not allowed to say can't at my house. It literally is infuriating to me. We can't say can't.
We can't.
I have a child who tests that pretty often. She tests every one of my buttons. She knows that that's a button. And she'll say, Mom, I just haven't learned how yet.
There you go.
So I love that. It's like, okay, well, then we're going to try.
Yeah.
And it might be terrible, but we're going to try.
Yeah. One of my mom's very favorite, well, I feel like it's her favorite because she says it all the time, is fake it till you make it. And I hated it forever, but then at different kind of roadblocks in my life, I faked it till I made it. And it's clunky and it's not always pretty, but it's worked for me so far. Yeah.
Goodbye.
So, okay, as an adaptable person, which you've both clearly proven that you are, how do you respond to change? Do you start with questions? Do you start just hit the ground running? How do you respond to change?
I am not change adverse. I like change. Change is fine. But I do like a process. Mm-hmm. Like the rules can change. That's fine. But just tell me what they are.
Okay.
And then we can follow them. And if I have to make a process, I will. But and also how to communicate the change. So I think that we have to be sensitive to that in what I do. Because I'm communicating with 150 people, hey, there's going to be a change sometimes, if it's not just in my four walls. And so being sensitive to that helps. Trying to think of it from every angle and what their possible objections might be. It's like sales. It really is. When something's changing, you know, we gotta sell it for, you know, pick up the point. But that's my approach, is just really trying to understand, I guess, the change. You don't always get to know why, so you can't ask that question. It may not make sense anyway.
Right.
But hey, if we're gonna do it, then, you know, figure out how we're gonna do it, and I guess what the eventual expectations are.
I think my approach to change is, I think it's defined as stages of grief. So, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to change, you know? And then I'm like, oh, I can't believe I have to change. And then I'm like, maybe there's a way that I can get out of this. And then I'm like bummed out because dang it, I gotta change. And then I'm like, okay, well, since I have to change, how do I make the best of it? And so again, I go back to what can I control? What can I do? And look for a way to overcome it. I like challenges. I like new solutions, you know, so, but definitely I have a process. Like it feels a little bit like it could be faster if I could just skip a bunch of steps, but sometimes it takes what it takes to get through things or, do things right. So.
Yeah, you guys sound very similar. For people who have not really met before, you sound very similar.
Yeah.
I'm noticing little hints of like, I'm really good at change, but I still like control.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've accepted that fact that only thing constant in life is change.
Truth.
So.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one I'm excited to hear. Could you describe the situation in which it was the most difficult for you to be adaptable? And then once you've described that, what would have happened had you been a stubborn person or stuck in your ways and refused to adapt?
Did you want to go?
Go ahead. I'm just laughing. It's a very fun question.
It is a fun question. Thank you.
And I actually I enjoyed reflecting and thinking of an answer to this question, because really it's pretty recent that our corporate parent has become more present in our lives here in Eugene, Oregon. And there's been a massive restructure, massive reorganization of our company. And it was very difficult at first because there was so much change happening at once. And I'll change. I'm good with change. Let's do something different. Let's get a process in place. Let's do it. But there wasn't any time to make a process when there's so many things piling on. And I mean, I didn't have any more space left in my pile.
Right.
So
right.
So if I'd have been stubborn at that stage, I would still be drowning. I mean, I just had to say, okay, one at a time. Yeah. Like, this is, okay, we're shifting all of the people from this department to that department. I understand you can't approve your time anymore. Let's figure it out how we're going to do it from this end. We're having remote supervisors for every department. And really, what I have done too, I find myself spending more time in the shop because that's the place that has been affected the least.
So it's consistent, it's familiar.
Where the least amount of change has happened. It's like, oh, that's like going home. Safe place.
Yeah.
So being stubborn, I mean, you stand your ground. It's fine until the bowling ball or until the giant Indiana Jones ball comes running over you, and that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
So it literally does no good.
Okay. Great. Joshua?
Well, I mean, my story. So my last job, I transitioned out, and I was in a place where I was like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I had some opportunities lined up and was moving forward in some very, taking care of my family type situations. And COVID happened. And so all those positions dried up. Everyone wasn't hiring and everybody wasn't starting projects. And it's like, oh no, what am I going to do? So I had to figure out what to do next. And then, there was a hiring freeze for a really long time. And there's just, it was not the right time. It was not the best time to be leaving a job.
Right. Right.
So I had to figure out what to do. And then I kind of leaned on my experience. I had my own business before, and I was like, well, maybe I can drum up some work and let's see what happens. And as I was kind of putting ideas out there to people, nobody was buying anything that I was trying to sell. So I was like, uh-oh. And then I noticed the trends, and I kind of paid attention, and a lot of people were going online, and a lot of website stuff were happening. And I was like, I used to do this for a living and I really enjoyed it. Maybe I should give this a shot. So I started a business at probably one of the worst economic times that we've had in the history of pretty much our students' lives. And I'm doing okay. Like I found something that is a need, and I'm delivering quality, and I get to use all my skills at this time. So, but had I been stubborn and been like, no, I'm going to wait for this job to hire me, or I don't know what kind of stupid sword I would throw myself on, or,
right.
I look at it this way. It's like, in Oregon, you technically can cross the street, without a crosswalk. But if there's a truck barreling down at 80 miles an hour and you you have the right of way. You can be very right, but still wrong. So I don't
That's a
know that,
really good example.
yeah, I don't know that stubbornness exactly pays off when it comes to things that you really shouldn't be stubborn for.
Right. And you're going to end up hurt, like Lila said, you're going to be drowning. You're going to hurt yourself
Yeah. But
more
that
than
stubbornness,
anybody.
though, was what kind of kept me going to say, I've got something I know I can do, and I'm just going to keep working at it. And so, in the grand scheme of things, I actually gave away a bunch of work at the beginning because I knew that I could do it, and that actually paid off. So, stubbornness applied in the right place definitely pays off.
Isn't that determination?
Oh, it depends. If it's seen as positive, then it's determination.
Yes.
If it's the other way, then it's like stubbornness or being.
Semantics. So we have a question here from Alejandro. What is your why? What is your motivation?
What is my why? That's a good question, and I've actually had to think about it for my particular work. I hate how disorganized the internet is, and so by doing search engine optimization, I'm actually helping people get their websites organized and structured. And so I'm organizing the internet one website at a time. That is my why. I love data, I love information, I love structure, I love taking chaos and making it into something and actually producing something that's of value and is usable. That's my why. There you go. And to do that, you have to be adaptable and you have to be, stubborn in the right place, I guess.
That's awesome. Lila, what is your why?
I think my why, I know that there, excuse me, I've known of some pretty crummy employers, my life and other people's life that like my parents and my spouse and stuff. And I have an opportunity to not be that like that. And really have a good working environment and be able to foster that and care about these people and show them that, and show the community that there are really great employers out there, and I get to play a good sized part in that. So I think that is really meaningful work in that way, and I get to make a difference in that way. And also I have 2 daughters, and so I think that, and I don't know if it would be the same if I had sons, but I think that it's important to show my girls that, what a successful career is like and what some good decisions are, and and kind of also the struggle. These are tough decisions that you might have to make, but this is why we do it. And to have a purpose like that and to be able to kind of show that and pass it on, for me is important.
That's great.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like part of my why is because my family likes to eat. And
I thought you were going to say that, to be honest. I did.
Yeah, that's the other why. That's the why that I can't control.
That's the secondary why.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we have been singing being adaptable and being flexible's praises. However, is there such a thing as being too flexible? How do you set boundaries for yourself to navigate that?
This was a really good question too, because in thinking about that, I think that being very flexible, I tend to invite too many opinions. I'll ask several people, hey, how would you do this? How would you like to see it done? What's your input? And just to gather information. And at some point, you got to stop and make a decision. So that's hard because you want to include people. At least I do. I want to include people because morale is a big deal and people like to feel like they're a part of something in general. So I like that. But at some point when you just have to stop and make a decision, but you have all these inputs now, and then now it's muddy and it's not as easy to just make a decision.
Right.
So there is a such thing as being too flexible.
And so what boundaries would you set? Let me just ask 2 people. Let me ask 3 people, or
actually make careful consideration who you're asking.
Great.
So because these people would know, and don't ask these other people because they just have an opinion about everything. Or you know.
Strategic asks. I get it. That makes sense. What about you, Joshua? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you definitely can't be too flexible. I worked in Eugene and I had to work with multiple agencies and multiple groups, and there was an endless supply of open-ended questions for everybody to answer and always getting everyone's feedback, which then you ask enough people, you eventually get to a point where you get advice that's all over the place, and then it's really good. Um, I think for me, one of the big challenges is so again, I'm not a big change person, but I like new things and new projects. And so I find myself when it's something new, I'm like, oh, cool, it's new. Let me spend all my time and energy on that. And it's like, I've got all these other responsibilities that I also have to do. So I'm flexible or adaptable with the new stuff coming on board, but I also have to make sure to take care of the other stuff. And so, um, again, creating processes and procedures and just kind of make sure that, okay, you know, I've got this new project, but I still have this work that I have to get done every week. And so how do I fit this all in? And so I try to schedule and stay organized to kind of address that. Otherwise, I would love to just talk to new people all the time and, never actually have to do anything I said I was going to
Wouldn't that be nice?
do. Right?
Great. So I have one more question prepared for you all, and so I just want to put it out there to everyone who's listening. This is your last chance to ask any questions. It can be about anything that's come up for you in the last 50 minutes. But if you have a question, be sure to type it in now. So you two, what advice do you have for people, especially young people, who would like to become more adaptable?
I think one, figure out, are you an adaptable person or not? It kind of take inventory of yourself. Um, Two, if you're not adaptable, then what is it in psychology? It's like when you're afraid of something, like you expose yourself to
It's
it.
called flooding.
Flooding.
It's called flooding. And I had to do that because I don't like a lot of holes. There's a phobia where you don't like a lot of little things. And I had to do that. You just have to stare at it until it doesn't bug you anymore.
So I think, or exposure therapy, I think is part of it too, right? Or something like flooding. But yeah, the idea is like, if you're not an adaptable person, then put yourself in a situation where you have to adapt. Maybe, if you like, again, but choose something that you're familiar with, that you enjoy. So like, if you like playing video games, go try a new video game, or try a new podcast or try a new video. I mean, I don't know, maybe ask your parents, is there something new I can do that I haven't done before? Like, they're like, sure, clean the gutters. You're like,
I was
oh.
going to say, I feel like that's an open-ended
I mean,
question.
I'm just saying, like,
Yes.
you never know. I think that's one of the things I really liked about Elevate and working with you guys is that, you put students in an experience that they maybe never would have had or never would have thought of doing. And so they're able to actually see something new and maybe discover some new passion or some new drive that they have. And so I think putting yourself in a place where you're having to adapt in a safe way and in a safe environment, I think it would be really good. And I think for the people that are overly adaptable and overly doing it, put a little more structure to your life, kind of organize things a little bit more and take the time to make sure that you're doing the things that, you need to be doing or focusing on. That would be my advice.
That's great advice. What about you, Lila?
Yeah, that's actually what I jotted down was.
I read your notes. I'm just kidding.
Try something new. And this is a time in students' lives when, like Andrew said, and why do I call you Andrew?
Alejandro?
Like Joshua said,
Joshua.
it's a safe time. There's so many opportunities out there, and there's all of these grown-ups who, want to help people try new things. We're offering so many services and opportunities that, this is really a safe time to figure out how adaptable you are. And if you do figure out that, I just really don't like change, like that's just too far of a stretch, that's a really good thing to know. Because it could really help a person shape their career choices and their education pathway for future. Right now is a really good time to learn that about oneself.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have one student type in a question for you both. Alejandro wants to know, would you ever change your career for something that you wanted to do when you were younger? And I'd like to know what you guys wanted to do when you were younger.
Oh my gosh.
Uh-oh.
I think I want to be an astronaut.
Sweet.
So, but I didn't know, like, I appreciate experience, and I've always gravitated to people that are older than me. I've talked to them and learned about life. Um, my wife's grandfather was in the Merchant Marines, and he was an engine operator. He had to like do all the oil and things. And I was like, "How did you get that job?" And he goes, "Well, a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm gonna go join the Merchant Marines. You want to go?" He's like, "Okay." And they showed up, and the captain's like, "Can you run this machine?" And he was like, "Sure." And so, bam, he was in charge of running the machine. So,
Awesome.
you know, that's something I never would have tried today. But
Mhm.
sometimes there's a situation where I'm like, well, I could probably figure it out. So I'm going to give it a shot. And I've learned that through experience. So I think I took a really circuitous route to actually go to college and actually like figure out what I want to do with myself. And I think I've learned a lot of things that I didn't want to do and I don't want to do. Um, so I think the ideas of what I wanted to be when I was younger and who I am now, um, they they've gotten there in a higher level. You know, maybe not so much the career or exactly what it is like defined by a job, but conceptually, like I'm in a place where I'm happy. I know my skills, I know my abilities, I know who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with, I know what I can and can't do, and I'm cool with that. And that happens to be working for myself. You know, if I happen to get hired and it's a job that would be alignment, I know where my happiness is and I know what I can be flexible and work around. And so I think for my younger self, I would just say, hey, dude, go try things, get an inventory of what you like and don't like. And then, you know, when you start a family and you start adding responsibilities to yourself, that's when you have to start delimiting your choices.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I don't know, man. For those young guys, like, just give stuff a shot, man. Just try things, you know, build things, take things apart, um, go on tours.
Job
Uh,
shadows.
yeah, job shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Just try anything and everything that you can in a safe way, and be open to kind of who you can be, and kind of understand what that could look like, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. Lila, you made a funny face when I said something about what you wanted to be when you were younger.
Oh, just because it's so drastically changed, I'm not even going to share. But
Superhero?
um, I feel like I'm kind of in the place where Joshua is, where, you know, I know what I'm not good at, and that helps. Like even knowing what you don't want to do, what you're not good at, helps aim you in the right direction, for finding what you are good at. And so, I took a safe path too, went to college, and you know I spent a lot of money before I actually figured out what I did want to do. Um, but I was going to be a teacher, and it's funny because I am kind of a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
now, but I couldn't do it in that kind of environment. Um, I just in an actual an, um, like a structured,
Classroom.
school
Yeah.
classroom. Yeah. Um, so as far as changing, I don't feel like there's anything I would rather be doing. I really don't feel another kind of calling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I certainly would not go and become a teacher. That's a labor of love that I'm so appreciative of. Um, and I'm so glad that there's crazy people out there who make really great teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Will not be joining those ranks.
Not one of them.
No.
Got it. Great.
That was a really good question.
Well, that was a good question. Yeah, you did. For sure. Okay, well, that wraps up all of the questions that I had. It looks like that wraps up the student questions. So lastly, just thank you both for being here, and thank you for the time and the preparation you put into your answers. We really appreciate your insight.
Cool. Yeah, this was fun. I like this stuff.
That was a really fast 50 minutes.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. So
Hey, I'm glad that you're an entrepreneur, man. I keep it up. Keep practicing, keep trying, and
awesome.
put some structure to it, though. Seriously. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That's totally fine. Thank you to those of you who joined us. Next week on Tour Tuesday, we're going to take a tour of Riverbend materials. And then for the working webinar, we are going to take a deep dive into having a solution mindset. So I look forward to seeing you all there. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.